defend the indefensible. But somehow you find a way to.
Tell me when you're finished.
Take it away.
My turn. Just quick points of order about Mr. Sharp across the table. Once again, you were really wrong about your Cowboy pick because you picked the Buffalo Bills to lose hugely yesterday to the Cowboys.
Yep.
31-17, just as you picked the Cowboys to win at New England the previous week. But your logic yesterday, you told me, quote unquote, on yesterday's show that the Buffalo Bills are even bigger frauds than the Dallas Cowboys.
And I was
even bigger fraud.
I was gravely mistaken. Gravely.
Really wrong.
But you know what, Skip? Unlike Jerry, I'm not going to cry about being wrong about this one. I'm happy.
The 9-3 Buffalo Bills are clearly way better in every way, shape, or form than the Dallas Cowboys, including coaching, which I will get to in just a moment. Now, I told you yesterday, sitting right in this chair, that game against the Buffalo Bills was make or break for my 2019 Dallas Cowboys. This would be the defining moment. And I believe yesterday completely broke my football team. I believe that this team has become a talented but broken football team that has lost its confidence, lost its mojo, lost whatever little momentum it had off those easy early season victories over, as you said, bad football teams.
Yes.
And has ultimately just lost its winning edge and its way. This team no longer has any idea how to win football games. This team continues to make lots of plays, but can't make the plays, the winning plays.
Meaningless plays.
You can say meaningless. I will give you that. But I was very wrong about the 2019 Dallas Cowboys. They are not going to win the division. They are not going to the playoffs. They are done. D-O-N-E, done. What? After yesterday. What? Yesterday was the worst loss of the year. It was even worse to me than the Green Bay loss in which they fell behind 31-3 at home.
Worse than the
But
Jets.
did roar back. This was the worst loss because this was the first time they just got their asses kicked at home.
What?
They got them kicked at home because they gave up after a roaring to a 7-0 lead, as I predicted.
Got up to the great start
they will
that you
just
wanted.
roar out of the gate.
Yes.
And then they looked around and said, are we there yet? Is that enough? Does that do it? Did we just make the play? No, you didn't make the playoffs because that team over there is resilient and tough mentally and physically. And here came the Bills, and there went Dallas because Buffalo scored 26 unanswered points. That was the worst loss because they just flat out lost that game. It's indefensible from start to finish. So I'm here to tell you, this team has so lost its way that there is no way it's going to go a week from last night to Chicago and win that game against the Bears, who I watched beat the Lions. Barely, but they beat them.
Right.
They're not going to win that game. They're not going to come home and beat the Rams at home, even though the Rams are struggling, you can argue, even more than the Cowboys are.
That's correct.
But somehow Jared Goff has had the Cowboys' number, and I believe he'll have it again. And finally, there is absolutely no way that I think the Cowboys can even go to the lowly Eagles, the Beagles as I call them, and win the big showdown game on, December 22nd, because what evidence do I have of this? This team has yet to beat any team with a winning record, not one time. I have no evidence that they can right the ship or flip the switch, as Jerry's saying, this is going to be the greatest story ever told. Baloney it is. It's over. Because look at what the Eagles have left. The easiest closing schedule in the National Football League. Look at what happens. The Eagles get to go to the Dolphins. Then they come home to play the Giants. Then they go to the Redskins. Then they get the Cowboys at home. And then the Giants at the Giants. They're going to win out.
We're taking them one at a time.
How can they not win out? So I'm here today to congratulate Shannon Sharp and his Philadelphia Eagles. You just won the NFC East. It is over.
Don't buy it.
It is done.
Without buying what you said,
it is over. I'm not selling anything. I'm just telling you. I'm just opening my heart. You can call me a psycho-crazed fan, and I am, because I threw Dak's jersey in the trash last year, but I fished it out because he earned me.
You should have put him back in there yesterday. Did you do that?
We'll talk about that. No, I did not, because the truth is that Dak Prescott's really all this team has had all year. I've told you this about 50 times.
Well, that ain't
on
much.
Show.
If all they got is him, it ain't much.
And the irony of what we're saying here is the only reason that my Cowboys are still on some sort of life support, some meaningless, weird life support, is because the Eagles, starting with Carson Wentz, have been so shockingly awful. Carson Wentz has regressed. Carson Wentz is not as good as Dak Prescott anymore. Maybe at one point it was at least a competition, but that's over.
I can't tell right now.
Yeah, well, I can. I can show you a whole lot of numbers on that one. Carson Wentz is a disaster, but he's less of a disaster than my team is. And the only reason my team is on life support is because your secondary was so decimated all year, but it's starting to come back together, starting to get healthy. So I will give you this. Your defense is much better than my defense is at this point, because my defense is way overrated, and it has been all year. My pass rush, featuring DeMarcus Lawrence, D-Law, $100 million man, it's way overrated because it's so wildly inconsistent. You'll see a flash. What did I just tell you? They'll make a play here or there.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Look at Robert Quinn. Look at Michael Bennett. And then what? Then it will go for 2 quarters and you won't even hear from it anymore.
Nope.
DeMarcus Lawrence is way overpaid at $100 million.
What?
Just the way my offensive line is way overpaid all across the board. They don't play up to their contracts. Not one of them does, where I say, that's dominating. They can't block for the run. They cannot protect Dak Prescott consistently. You don't see a full game of dominant run blocking, dominant protection. It just breaks down like crazy. They look like a sieve about half the plays in the game. I'm sorry. And I'm going to get to Ezekiel Elliott in a little bit here, but he's not worth $90 million. He's not a $90 million running back.
If you only give him 12 carries a game, he can't show you what he can do.
We'll talk about that, because he had 2 big carries early, and then, I don't know, he was gone.
What about those 2 carries in the second half?
What 2 carries?
Exactly. That's all he had in the second half was 2.
Well, I'm going to get to that soon, because he's still way overrated.
No, your quarterback is.
My quarterback has been the only bright spot, and it's hard to defend my quarterback because...
Well, you're trying really hard.
He is now 9th worst in the league, which is not the bottom, but he's 9th worst in turnovers. So total turnovers,
hold up.
That's hard to overcome.
Hold up. And yesterday he was bouncing to him, throwing the ball at Zeke's feet.
Well, he's not as bad as that guy is.
Your guy hit the D lineman in the belly with a pick. But that was Jason Garrett's fault because he was on the sideline clapping, G, and you ain't know that. That was his fault. What about the strip sack? What are you doing with the ball? I thought you protect the ball in your hand. You in the pocket, Skip.
It's actually the first time that's happened all year.
No,
he did not see the rookie from the University of Houston behind him.
That's the first time. That's the first time they lost it. It's happened, but if you don't lose it, then don't worry about it. Go ahead, make it.
Okay, so I want to be clear about this. I want to restate my position on Jason Garrett. I said all the way back to after the 2013 season, I'd seen enough of Jason Garrett. So that's on the old show on ESPN. I was on the record after 2 8-8s and a little half season replacing Wade Phillips. That was enough. Not a head coach, too vanilla, too uninspiring, too meat and potatoes, too conservative, too much play not to lose. I'm done with Jason Garrett. That's a long time ago. So I've had to live with him all this way. And the only metallic silver lining to last night was that was good night for Jason Garrett, because, yeah, he's going to stay afloat the rest of the year because Jerry loves him like a son. But he will be gone after this year. So that's the only positive takeaway from yesterday, that was the end of Jason Garrett.
I'll be glad. You know why?
And yet I told you also last Monday of this week that I would have fired him on Monday following the New England loss, only to shake up the locker room. It needed a jump start. It needed to be kicked in the butt with such a shocking change. Elevate Chris Richard, the head coach.
After that defense, what it did yesterday?
I'm just saying, you need some new voice, some new some new look up there at the podium.
Chris Richard's voice is not even resonating with his defense. It's going to resonate through the whole team.
Okay, well, you got to put somebody up there.
Well, you got
okay,
Jason
put
Garrett.
Rod Marinelli up there.
Oh,
I don't
really?
care.
Do you remember the last time we saw him coach? 0-16.
Well, do you realize the last 8 years I've seen Jason Garrett coach?
You got 3 divisions.
I'm done with it. I've had enough of Jason Garrett. I've seen enough, heard enough, because I don't hear anything. But the point is, given all that, Jerry Jones shocked me last night because after he was so highly critical of Jason Garrett, he basically was admitting to you last night that was all phony baloney. He was just playing to the crowd. At New England, that was only intended to light a fire under the football team. So he tried to light it himself while protecting the coach that he does love like a son. Then all of a sudden, we went from angry Jerry to teary-eyed Jerry. What? He wasn't flat out crying. He just got tears of emotion in his eyes. And I got to tell you, it started coming off like crazy old man talk. It was like sappy old man Thanksgiving night talk, right? After Thanksgiving dinner and a couple of drinks.
Yeah, a couple of drinks.
And he said, some people would say, what are you really smoking? No, I was wondering, what are you really drinking, old man, right? Because this got so sappy that he's talking about, I've lived a football life.
Yeah.
Which is the title of the documentaries we see on NFL Network.
Yep.
I've lived a football life with Jason Garrett, as if he's trying to say, hint, hint, maybe Jason and I would make a good football life together, right? He's like a son to me. And then Jerry starts talking about the greatest story ever told would be them flipping the switch out of nowhere, winning the division, and going to the Super Bowl. He had the audacity to talk about that. But here's where you missed the boat on this.
Okay.
It wasn't him talking like a fan. Jerry has now gone so delusional that he believes that he is the Dallas Cowboys. Like, he assembled the whole team. He picked the players.
Yes.
He paid the players.
Yes.
He picked all the coaches.
Yes.
He put them all in their positions. So he is now completely identifying with the Cowboys, as in all that talk about adversity and